So about 1 million kids, about 1.2 million kids each year leaving high school without a regular diploma. And that really translates into a real crisis for this country. But the crisis is deeper still for communities of color. On average, about 55%, only about 55% of African Americans students in high school graduate from high school on time, and only about 53% of Hispanic Americans graduate from high school on time, compared to about 78% for their white high school counterparts. And if you really extend that reality to its logical conclusion, what it spells is a real crisis for the future of our nation, a crisis that begs significant attention. So the other half of this story really is, what are we going to do, or what are we willing to do as a nation, as people, as a Congress, to reverse this trend and ultimately to safeguard our country. The Campaign for High School Equity has about 4 basic thoughts and recommendations around this issue, which are embodied in the folder that you have. But they're basically this. 1, the campaign believes that graduation rates should be clear, accurate, and comparable across schools, districts, and states. And here's part of why this is important. NCLB, unfortunately, does not have, to our satisfaction and that of a number of people, enough of an accountability system as it relates to graduation rates. And what that has led to, as many of you know, is that all too often institutions are allowed to report sometimes inaccurate and sometimes misleading information about who is in fact graduating from high school. And if you really want to get to a deeper understanding of how well a high school is performing, then let's look at, for lack of a better term, let's look at what the ultimate output or product is. If high school X is not graduating a significant portion of its students, that suggests that something may be going on and that there's a need for corrective action there. But because of the lack of accountability and the wide divergencies in terms of how schools calculate graduation rates and report graduation rates, it's very difficult to tell what's actually going on. It's very difficult to know who is graduating ultimately, who is not, and why. Second, Campaign for High School Equity believes that graduation rate increases should be aggressive, but they should be attainable. Why aggressive? Because it's important that we communicate not only to students but also to schools and to a larger community that we have high expectations for our young people. 3, graduation rates should be increased over time, and graduation rates should be considered on equal footing with high quality assessments. 4, graduation rates should be disaggregated for accountability and reporting purposes so that all students benefit from school improvement efforts and activities. Now, rather than getting into the specific details around these basic recommendations, I'm going to allow our panelists to, in much more colorful fashion, share with you some of their very unique perspectives on what we need to do. But I do want to leave you with this basic thought to sort of sum up where I think we are on this issue. If you consider the fact that as our global economy becomes more and more complex and more interdependent, the reality is that we really can no longer afford for so few of our students to leave high school each year without a regular high school diploma. More importantly, we can no longer afford for so many students of color to continue to drop out of high school at the alarming rates that is happening. In fact, if we increase graduation rates for our students of color so that those rates are equal to white students in this country, by the year 2020 we will have added, conservatively, about $310 billion in revenue to our national economy. But beyond that economic imperative, there's also the question of who is and who is not going to be able to shoulder the mantle of leadership when it comes to understanding and wielding our democracy. So these are very, very important issues, and the degree to which we fail to address them makes us more and more complicit in creating a class of people that are increasingly unable to participate in the society and increasingly unable to control their own destinies. So, with that, I am going to sit down and be quiet for a moment and introduce our first speaker for the morning, Mr. Joseph Garcia. Joe?